I recently had the pleasure to speak with Victor Cabral, who's just back from sitting in sacred ceremonies with ayahuasca and psilocybin in Ecuador. Victor has expertise in policy and advocacy, BIPOC mental health, racial and communal trauma, and psychedelic medicine. Victor is a licensed social worker and practicing psychotherapist in Pennsylvania, with training in internal family systems, psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy, and psychedelic integration. In this episode, he shares how psychedelics have helped him heal from childhood trauma and what inspired him to take several men of color on psychedelic trips and deep conversations to normalize men of color working through their challenges consciously in the inspiring film project Transcendence. Victor also shares how this film will greatly benefit people of color, men, and how he's bringing Indigenous reciprocity into the equation. Victor is a collaborative and strategic leader who's making an impact on historical inequalities in his community and across the United States. Victor is the founder of Dreamers of the Day, LLC, and serves as the Director of Policy and Regulatory Affairs for Fluence International, a company that provides evidence-based training in psychedelic therapy and integration services to clinicians across the globe. Before joining Fluence, Victor served as Deputy Director for the Pennsylvania Governor's Office of Advocacy and Reform, where he co-led the implementation of the Trauma-Informed Pennsylvania Plan, helped establish the first Racial Day of Healing in Pennsylvania history, and developed free trauma trainings for Pennsylvanians in collaboration with internationally recognized experts. Enjoy the conversation. It's time to upgrade your life. Welcome to the Conscious Evolution Podcast. I'm Dr. Andrea Pennington, Chief Psychedelic Officer for Innate Vitality. In this podcast and our live events and retreats, we explore ways to hack enlightenment by integrating ancient wisdom and modern neuroscience with transpersonal psychology. From plant medicine and psychedelics to breathwork, mindfulness, and neurofeedback, my guests and I will shine a light on the unique capacity that we have to use our conscious mind to evolve individually and collectively as a species. Tune in each week on your favorite podcast player or the Pennington Media YouTube channel for interviews and discussions about holistic healing of trauma and adverse childhood experiences, burnout recovery, and intentional wellness. Victor Cabral, thank you so much for joining us on the Conscious Evolution Podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited too, because I have been following your story and how you share about your own psychedelic experience, the film Transcendence that you're shooting, taking people to Africa to experience psychedelic healing. And you just got back from Ecuador, where you got to sit in sacred ceremony with a whole host of medicines. So I'm excited to have you here. Can we just start first by telling people, like right now, you are a licensed social worker and you're helping people with their mental health. But how did you get started in the psychedelic world?
Yeah, so for me, it was kind of a personal growth path. Actually, my work in social work has been kind of a parallel process of being of service and also working on myself and getting to know myself. And so in 2013, I left my job and I went to work in a charter school in the city that I'm from, here in Reading, Pennsylvania, and started to just witness the trauma that was in my community and saw myself reflected in that, and started doing my own work with therapy, and about 2015, I felt like I had really hit a wall in my healing, and that I knew I wanted to go deeper, and there was something deeper there to explore. And I had remembered an experience that a friend of mine in college shared with me, which I took as a little off the wall. I didn't understand it, but with me, and these conversations started to reemerge on, podcasts and whatnot in 2015, 2016, and it brought that back for me, and I was like, well, this sounds like something that I may want to explore. And so I spent about a year doing research before deciding to have my first experience with psilocybin in search of healing.
Wow. And what exactly did you feel like you needed to heal from? And what did you try before? So I imagine psychotherapy or medication. What did you try before?
Yeah, up until that point, I had tried therapy. I had been on several antidepressants and Adderall for ADHD, Xanax. It was just it just kept piling on, right? Like you take one medication, then you get another one for the side effects from the other one. And so for me, what I was trying to work through was really my childhood trauma. I have an ACEs score of 8. I'm a first generation immigrant. There's a lot of intergenerational trauma. There's a lot of environmental trauma. There's a lot of race-based trauma that I experienced and still experience in some ways. And so, but I didn't know that that's what I was trying to heal at the time. I just knew that I was hurting and that there was something that I needed to address.
Yeah, same here. I've got an ACE score of 7. I'm the daughter of an immigrant, and thankfully, you got there earlier than me. I am now 51, and it took all the way into my 40s before I really was able to uncover just how much that toxic childhood was impacting me. Because I knew other people who, had divorced families and whatever, it was just sort of normalized. But it really wasn't until I got into this deeper work to realize, no, that toxicity is why you are so sad and depressed and anxious.
Yeah, and I just want to say you do not look 51 at all, but also, um, I think, once I had my first experience with medicine, then I used to think like, man, what if I would have found this medicine, 10 years ago? But now as I mature more, I figure like, I got it when I was supposed to get it,
Exactly. Because you shared that someone had mentioned it to you and you weren't ready at that time.
Yeah, it just didn't, I didn't have the capacity to understand the depth that person described to me, and that the healing that they experienced, and I was just like, that sounds literally out of this world. And so I don't know that I would have been able to appreciate the experience at that time in my life. So you have described that psychedelics have really been a catalyst for your healing as a human being, and you also see that psychedelic medicine can help people heal racial trauma, intergenerational trauma. So tell me a little bit about what your experience is now. Actually, no, we haven't even gone into the substances. Wait. Sorry. Rewind that back. Talk to me about your very first experience with psychedelic medicine. Was it psilocybin mushrooms? Yeah, it was psilocybin, and I was very careful. I did a lot of reading about experiences, both good and bad, beforehand. I had someone close to me who I informed, that I was going to be embarking on this experience. And then I just, I put on Bob Marley and the Wailers, I think it's Natural Mystic album. It's a live album. And I took some psilocybin and just kind of hung out, and had a really, really positive experience. Experienced myself in the womb at one point, and just experiencing the liberation that comes with peeling back all of the burdens and expectations and stereotypes and all of these things that I was carrying, and the freedom that comes with the realization that I have choice in my life, that I am more than I'm perceived to be or made to be by society. and understanding the importance of love, of loving other human beings, of being love in the world. And it was just completely shattered everything that I thought was true about myself and the world, in a way that was, even talking about it, sometimes I lose my breath a little bit, because it was pretty powerful.
And that was what year?
2016. Wow. So it was right before I started graduate school.
Okay. I'm Dr. Andrea Pennington, Managing Director for Make Your Mark Global, and I am calling for some new authors for one of our group anthologies called Sacred Medicine. We are calling for authors of all kinds all around the world who have stories to share about psychedelic assisted therapy, psychedelic medicine, sitting in ceremony with Kambo, Bufo, 5-MeO-DMT, ayahuasca, psilocybin mushrooms, mescaline, peyote, you name it, we want to hear about it. And in particular, we are publishing stories of good and challenging trips because I really want people to understand the breadth and the depth of experiences that can come when sitting with psychedelic medicine. I personally have been helped so much in my own healing journey, and I'm now sitting in ceremony with clients, and I know that people need more information on what is safe, what's not, what's to be expected, and what might catch you off guard. So if this sounds like a book that you want to be a part of, then please click the link in the description or in my bio so that you can share your story or your concept totally free. We at Make Your Mark Global do all of the heavy lifting, the editing, the formatting, getting the book globally distributed on Amazon and other book retailers. And you retain 100% copyright for your story. We are really looking forward to bringing this book out to the world in 2023. So share this video or the link with other people that you know who want to be featured in a book about sacred medicine. I look forward to reading your story. You've also just come back from Ecuador, and I know that you experienced even more. You sat with ayahuasca as well as magic mushrooms. What else did you experience, and do you mind giving us a little overview of what you took away from that experience, especially being in a different country?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, my colleagues and my friends, family, medicine family that was there with me. So Dr. Williams, Hanifa, and Abby, everyone that was there with me. It was just like a really good group of people to be around and to be able to process with. And also, I have been in ceremony spaces internationally before, and I've done some ketamine work here legally through my training. And the level, being with a shaman that was actually, from a lineage and trained since he was young, it was just a completely different experience, just completely different and profound and beautiful. And yeah, so we had 3 ceremonies. It was on the first day, it was San Pedro, and then we were offered some sacred mushrooms during that journey as well. And then ayahuasca, and then sacred mushrooms was the third ceremony. And for me, I think I tell people that, well, I've told my close friends and the people that I have talked to about it, that I felt like I became a man. There was a lot of, with trauma, a lot of times there's parts of us that are stuck at a certain age or have a certain understanding of the world. And I guess not so much a man, but an adult, right? Somebody who can be accountable and be responsible for who they are and all the ways that we show up in the world. And that was very difficult to face, but very liberating as well.
So, what did you think of ayahuasca?
I have sat with ayahuasca in the past, in an international experience. Again, it was what I needed at the time, but this was completely different, in that It was like looking into a mirror at my shadow for however many hours. I was, I was with the medicine, and so it was really hard, because everything, I talk about on my Instagram how everything that I've done or said, or the ways that I've showed up in the world that harm other people or harm the people that I love, all of those words, all of those memories were replaying out in front of me. And, the shaman beforehand kind of prepped us, and even during, saying, receive the lesson and then move on and ask more questions, rather than a lot. I think sometimes when we talk about bad trips, it's like sitting with whatever revelation came up and not wanting to deal with it. And then that makes for a rough ride. But for me, it was very much an acceptance and a thanking the medicine and thanking the ancestors and thanking spirit for showing me, and then making a commitment to myself and to spirit that I was gonna try to do better, and also seeing the ways in which I run away from accountability and responsibility. So I'd start planning about the future. I'd start worrying about friends and other people's lives and how I could help them. And the medicine would bring me back and say, like, no, you need to focus on you and what you need to deal with. So very humbling and very liberating experience with ayahuasca. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it sounds like, we talk a lot about preparation. And for me, I'm a trauma doctor. So I work with people who have high ACE scores, who've experienced a lot of trauma. And part of preparing for a sacred ceremony means getting in touch with those darker parts, the wounded, exiled parts, as well as the shadow, the stuff that we may have been hiding or denying or completely forgot. And I find that when you sit in ceremony, whether it's ayahuasca or psilocybin or ketamine, you will be coming face to face with your shadow. Do you feel like your training as a social worker, having sat with medicine before, being in therapy, do you think that prepared you for seeing the shadow and being able to endure that challenging experience?
Yes, in some ways, right? It gives me some tools and I had already, over the years and doing this healing work, have some level of self-awareness and am able to, I'm able to track where my mind is, and ground myself. But I don't think anything prepares you for that level of just reality, or that level of I don't even have words for it, right? It's I think you can be prepped to kind of just be open to it and receive it and accept it, but as far as like being ready for what's actually going to come up, unless you've been to that place before, I think that's part of what makes the experience so powerful, is that you're not ever going to be ready for it, right? It's like being a parent, right? Like you're never really ready for it, Like,
Yeah, we read all the books, we listen to the podcasts, and then you have a kid and it's like, okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what has changed? I know that you had already started work on a film called Transcendence, really to help other people of color, and men in particular, to see what it's like to talk about your issues and to seek a path of healing. And you're still working on the production of this film. But now that you've sat in these additional ceremonies in Ecuador, has anything changed about the way that you will approach the film?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of conversations that have happened with me and the director and the writer on the film, as well as just really interesting conversations with Dr. Williams while we were there, and also seeing Dr. Flores's. So Dr. Flores is the medicine man, or the shaman, and Nina Wasi's the retreat center that he runs down there, and just going down there, I think just changed my entire perspective about what is it that we're actually trying to communicate here. How do we really honor the medicine and honor the tradition, and offer reciprocity for, wherever we go to do this, and what do we need to show people, to make an impact and to educate and to empower without dishonoring or what's the word that I'm looking for?
Exploit, appropriate.
Exploiting, appropriation, but also just I can't think of the word, but just making idealizing, or just kind of as medicine work, and we've seen other films where they portray folks from indigenous communities or medicine folks as primitive, or and just being really careful about that, and in the ways that we as people of color sometimes, or I'll speak for myself as a person of color, I think we also need to be responsible for appropriating. And I think sometimes for myself, I get so focused on how others are doing that, right, and trying to point the finger at that, and part of my medicine journey was really what are you doing yourself that you need to focus on, rather than trying to point out what everyone else is doing, right? And the shaman said, for every finger you point, there's 4 pointing back at you.
That's right. That's right. So let's talk about then the film, what the initial impetus was and what you're hoping for the future. And of course, we're going to invite everyone to go to pictureacolorfulworld.com so that they can support you by donating to the film. Tell us about Transcendence.
Yeah, so it initially came together. I have a group of friends who I've grown up with. We're family in different ways. Chosen family. Some of them are blood family. Some of them are married in family. And we just all kind of grew up in the same circumstances with a lot of trauma, and leaned on each other for support. And so as I was going through college and I was going through what I was going through, being the only one that went to a 4-year school initially, they were really there to hold me up in different ways. And we just continued to build on that. And this was probably 6 or 7 months ago. I just told them, we have a really beautiful relationship. It's not perfect. Sometimes we fight. Sometimes we have issues, conflict, which is normal, right, in any family. But I was I think we should showcase this, because I think specifically when it comes to men of color and the ways in which we relate to one another, this could have a huge impact on our community. And they were like, yeah, cool, let's do it. I don't think anyone actually knew that it was going to come together. But 2 weeks later, I'm meeting with Esteban and Eric, and who are the director and the writer, and we're talking about making it happen. Then I talked to Duran about it. Duran and I are good friends, and she's been a great supporter of mine in my career.
And she's the founder of Black Therapists Rock.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And so Duran had shared with me that she had a documentary idea, and I was like, well, why don't we marry all of this and just make a beautiful film where we explore the reemergence of psychedelics from the perspective of people of color, researchers, sound healers, Reiki masters, regular everyday people who are going to work, in a factory somewhere, all of these different perspectives, and just share ourselves and share what it's like. And I think people witnessing that authenticity and that vulnerability between, men of color in their 30s, some of them have been to prison, some of them have had other issues, I think is a powerful tool for change, and for perpetuating or for spreading love in the world, right? And that's really what I want to do with this film, is really liberate people through authenticity and through being honest, about healing. And I guess the last thing I'll say is that we're not showing up on camera saying we took psychedelics and we're all perfect now, right? It's really this has been a tool for us, and it has made us more accepting of the fact that we're flawed human beings.
And so where are you going next with the film? Are you shooting more footage in South America or in Africa? What's the plan?
Yeah, so right now we're in the process of planning a live stream event, hopefully mid-fall, to raise. Our goal is to raise $250,000 by this fall, and then go into pre-production, which is the planning stage and really pulling in the voices that we want in terms of researchers and historians, etc., and hopefully raising enough money to be able to go down to Ecuador. And so I think as we raise more money, it gives us an opportunity to gather more footage, which then gives us more to share and then drives more donations. I think that's the strategy. And we've had some huge, we have Opportunity Lab out of New York City, which they've been super helpful in just pulling in their resources and helping us bring things together. And then Dr. Bronner's Soap and David Bronner donated a significant amount of money to the film as well. So yeah, our goal is to raise that $250,000 by this fall, and then start pre-production and hopefully shooting by the spring.
And which substances which sacred medicines will you all be taking when you go back to Ecuador?
I don't think we've had that conversation yet. But I would imagine that ayahuasca would probably be at the top of the list, just in terms of the healing that it brings, and working with Dr. Flores and his expertise with ayahuasca and the way in which he guided the ceremony, and I think it would be a great medicine for us to be able to sit with. There may be more, maybe a different medicine. It also depends on what the shaman thinks. A lot of times shamans and doctors, etc., anyone who's, I think, serious about psychedelic medicine does an assessment beforehand and kind of makes a decision about what medicines are appropriate and what's the best fit for the issues that people are bringing to the table.
Awesome. So talk to me about integration. Like, you've just come back very recently, sitting with these 3 ceremonies, and it sounds like that ayahuasca journey was a doozy. What do you do for yourself for integration, and what do you recommend other people do so that they can take all of the magical, or whatever we want to call that, information that comes to us in ceremony? How do you integrate that into your life?
Yeah, I'm fortunate to have built a really, really close-knit community of folks around me. So I have my friends and my wife, who I can talk to about my experiences and what I've gotten out of it. I'm also in therapy. I'm a therapist who goes to therapy. And my therapist is not trained in integration work, but we've been working together for 3 years, and so we've kind of grown on each other in that way. Like, she knows how to support me in that. There are integration therapists out there, but they're hard to find. What else? I think for me, it's I have some spiritual family that always tells me, if you're feeling down, are you eating well? Are you exercising? Are you resting? And there's a couple other checklist things of, like, making sure I'm doing those basic things, and then reaching out to my tribe and the people that support me to say, hey, I just want to talk about these things and try to find some meaning in them. And I find that also sharing for me is good integration, because as I'm speaking, I'm able to just find little truths, right, that I may have missed, or that don't make much sense or are harder to understand when they're in my head.
Yeah. I've had the same experience going to integration circles, and now I'm finishing the MAPS certification, and as a physician already prepared to do ketamine. But as I've sat with people and done integration sessions, I find what you're saying is so true, that the more we talk about it, like, things just start to come back to us. because if you just leave it in your head, it's like a dream. It's kind of slippery. It kind of like gets away from you. And I also find that hearing other people as they're reflecting, it also like sparks little bits of awareness.
Yeah, group integration is I mean, I don't get those opportunities much outside of, there are group integration. I know Hanifa and One Village Healing offer some group integration. But that's also helpful when you sit with others in a space that's safe and confidential and people are sharing. A lot of times something will resonate and bring something up for you, and it really helps to kind of bring the experience out and for processing.
Yeah. And also the good folks at the Ancestor Project, Charlotte James and Dre Wright, who have also been on the podcast, they host a free BIPOC circle on Sundays. It's been really helpful. So do you offer services? I know you have consulting as one piece of your bio. Are you still working as a social worker? What's your other part of your life look like?
Yeah, so I'm a full-time director of policy and regulatory affairs right now for Fluence Training, which is a company that trains therapists in psychedelic integration and psychedelic assisted therapy and harm reduction. I haven't seen since last May. I kind of took a break from seeing clients, but I'm actually getting ready to potentially join a local agency here that's trying to establish a ketamine clinic and supporting that and starting to see clients in my community from where I'm from and offering the medicines or the medicine. And then I've also had conversations about with Dr. Williams about potentially supporting her work in Connecticut at the Be Well Clinic, behavioral wellness. And so yeah, right now I haven't seen any clients for probably 6 months, but I'm looking to start to get back into that work. I'm also a speaker. I do consult and that's kind of like what I've been up to. The policy work has been has taken up a lot of my time, and the advocacy work over the last 6 months, I've been really focused on that stuff. Just trying to get policies passed and trying to bring our voices or BIPOC voices into those spaces to make sure that when these legislative efforts include our voices and our needs as well. So,
yeah. Wonderful. Well, I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing. And of course, all of our other colleagues, and looking forward to connect with Dr. Williams and some of the folks that you've mentioned. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your voice with us here today on Conscious Evolution. And I just want to remind people that they can support you and your film, Transcendence. You can check out the trailer, and there's a link to donate if you go to pictureacolorfulworld.com. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, just super grateful for the opportunity, and yeah, I am because we are. That's what's at the core of the work. So I'm hoping that I can be supportive to you or your community or your audience in any way that I can to bring this work forward.
Awesome. So grateful for it. Thank you so much, Victor. Be well. Thank you for tuning into the Conscious Evolution podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend, subscribe, and leave us a review and rating on your favorite podcast player. This helps us get the content out to a larger audience. And to watch the video version of the podcast, visit the Pennington Media YouTube channel. Want more info on how psychedelics may improve your mental well-being, how to choose a retreat, or what to look for in a shaman? Get on the Psychedelic Curious email journal. The link is in the show notes and on my website, andreapennington.com. You can also sign up for my free masterclass series, where each month I take a deep dive into a topic in holistic healing, trauma recovery, self-love, resilience, and psychedelic-assisted therapy.